なんで人が死ぬってのはよ、こんなに悲しいんだろうな。
Wow, we really are getting philosophical. Hello everyone, my name is Michael SK, and welcome back to Umineko When They Cry, episode 3, where things are getting deep. So I think in the previous video, we had a lot going on actually in the previous 2 videos. Another 3 Twilights happening at the same time, which I had to be corrected in the comments. Yes, this did happen a second time. The first time being in episode 1, which were the final 3 sacrifices needed at that time. It was the servants, where Maria, I think the servants plus Najo, I think that's who we had left. And Maria was just there in the corner counting and singing and whatever she was doing. But yeah, that thing had already, or this sort of event had already happened. I just completely forgot about it. Episode 2 sort of just took over. But yes, this did happen again. Hideyoshi was the third one to die. Basically, that entire group was wiped, which I think should completely clear up any suspicions of anybody here in this building being the killer. I think everybody's going to be thinking it's got to be somebody else, which is very, very interesting, thinking about things from a realistic sense. Anyways, let us move on. Also, somebody actually brought up in the comments, and I didn't realize this at the time, or maybe I did and I just didn't say anything. I don't know. How did Hideyoshi know that Ava found the gold, that she won and everything? Was he like listening in and that was like stated at some point? Like that kind of sticks out, doesn't it? I don't know. Like I didn't bring it up when that popped up. I guess it just didn't feel as significant because maybe there's a reason for it somewhere, right? And maybe it's not so serious, but it is questionable now that it was brought up by somebody else, right? Battler muttered, "It was as though he was speaking on behalf of all humans. His question probably hadn't been directed at anyone, but Jessica answered." Jessica has been, like, non-existent in this episode. Can we all agree on that?
いつか訪れる別れであると分かっている者は、その悲しみを長い時間をかけてあらかじめ薄めておくことができる。それを許されないから、突然の不幸は悲しいんだろうよ。
Honestly, yeah.
なるほどな。そりゃ病気にでもかかって何年も昏睡状態になってりゃ、ある日突然じゃその暇もねえもんな。
I mean, shit, if a friend or family member right now just up and dies and there was like no warning, no reason to suspect that they were, in a position to, croak. Yeah, it's going to be like tragic.
本来なら数年をかけて薄めるべき悲しみが一度に押し寄せる。そりゃ辛いわけさ。時には人の生涯に傷を残すほど深い悲しみを与えることもあるかもしれない。
生涯に傷を残すほど。
That is interesting, actually. What if it's a death that, like...
じいさまのオカルト趣味もさ。
Okay, hold that thought for a moment. Let's think about Rosa here for a moment. She didn't really know Beatrice all that, really long at all when she came across her as a child. If that story actually played out the way that she told it, that, she fell down that cliff and died, but, or that hillside, whichever is a little bit more appropriate there. But, witnessing somebody die in general, I think is also definitely something that will change you forever. If it's a loved one, yeah, but I think in any case, it could really F you up. Oh, perfect. We're actually kind of on the correct topic here.
だとしたら、じいさまは最後の土壇場でその奇跡を成し遂げたな。犯人は蘇ったベアトリーチェで、じいさまは殺される瞬間に再会できたってことになるぜ。
That's actually how it is in the magical sense. It's what we saw.
自分で蘇らせて、 それに殺されるとは皮肉な話さ。
それでもおじいさまは会えたんだろうね。
Yeah,
人生の半分を
she
通し
did.
て
Or he did. He did get to see
もう
her.
一度会いたいと願った女性にわずかなひとときとはいえ再会できたんだろうね。
It worked out really well for him in
丸焼き
episode
にされち
2.
まったけどな。人生の半分をかけた研究にしてはちょいと割の合わない成果だろうぜ。
そんなことはないよ。たとえほんのひとときであったとしても愛した女性に再会できたおじいさまは幸せだったはずさ。仮に生命の摂理に逆らった罪を神に咎められてその身を焼かれ地獄に落とされたとしても、その見返りの再会がほんのわずかな時間だったとしてもね。
上司兄さん、
神の怒りに触れてこの身を焼かれようとも構わない。わずかな時間でもいいからシャノンを再び蘇らせてくれる
Damn,
な
that is actually some real love
僕
right
は
there.
残りの人生すべてをおじいさまと同じ研究に捧げるよ。
And maybe this is a little bit of a peek into like just how far some people in this family are willing to go. Maybe it explains Kinzo just a little bit more.
5分でいいからシャノンともう一度言葉を交わしたい。1分でもいいからそれと引き換えに全ての人生を捧げても
But there is a difference
僕は
here.
構わない。
At least from the perspectives that we've seen so far, George is actually displaying proper love here. But for Kinzo, it was an obsession. Maybe originally it was love in some sort of way, but then through trying to see her again, it became obsession.
兄貴
And I've talked about it like a whole bunch of times, I'm sure, already in this episode, but like, yeah, no, it's and not even in this, specifically this episode, but also in episode 2, it's a lot of obsessive behavior. When Battler and Jessica realized that their pointless discussion was causing George pain, they could do nothing more than shut their mouths. George directed his thoughts to Kinzo's life. He sacrificed half his life to research that no one understood. And on the last day of his life, he revived the person he loved most, and probably succeeded in his reunion in his final moments. George didn't know how much time they'd had together. He didn't know if they'd been given an hour or just 5 minutes. However, that moment must have been enough to reward him for all those months of research. Even though he spent dozens of years to achieve it, that small amount of time was probably more than worth it to him. Until today, I never believed in the occult or magic or anything. Somewhere in my heart, I even made fun of grandfather's research, as you should, thinking of it as nothing more than a pastime. However, I won't make fun of it anymore. No, you should. No, to the contrary, I'll believe strongly that it's real. You shouldn't. It's actually pretty interesting because this feels like we're going in the same sort of direction that episode 2 sort of went in, you know? Where Battler was really quick to jump onto the idea that magic was real, where in episode 1, not at all. If the power of belief can create miracles, I'll probably throw away all my studies up until today, spending the rest of my life from today onwards studying magic. Give me the power of magic, and give me a miracle that'll let me see Shannon again. Wait, are we through the George perspective here? Was that not Battler?
ごめんよみんな。僕もどうかしてる。魔法で死者が蘇るくらいだったら世界中の人々が魔法を学ぶだろうね。
Well, I'm sure a lot of us here have watched or read Full Metal Alchemist. I mean, the idea of it, you know, it's nice, right? Like, to be able to talk with a loved one yet again, but they're gone. Their bodies are physically, like, you know, going away. Like, they physically do not function anymore. Like, we think about the soul, the heart, and all that in a spiritual sense, but no, the body is gone.
でも現実にはそんなことはない。誰も学ばない。死者が魔法では蘇らないって知っているから。
I mean, there's a little bit more to it as well. There is no magic.
僕のせいでおかしな空気になっちゃったね。みんなだって辛いだろうに。気を使わせてごめん。
I will still stand by the fact that I think George has had it the roughest in just every fucking episode. Even if I did it to divert myself from my sadness, maybe I did say something strange. If I keep talking about stuff that's so weird, I'm sure it won't do anything good for their sadness. But that doesn't mean I can't bear the silence, or I can bear the silence. No, it's a tough situation.
僕は下に行ってもう一杯コーヒーをもらってくる。うちの母さん、コーヒーの入れ方にはこだわりがあるんだよ。みんなもおかわりはいるかい？
Battler-kun and Jessica-chan lightly shook their heads. Without pressing them any further, I took my mug and left the room. Have we always been following George in this, Why is there a chair just sitting there at the end of the hallway? Have we always been following George in this little section here? Because, yeah, for a moment there, I thought we were following Battler. The shutters were all closed in the hallway. No, they're not. So the corridor was very dim. I know the backgrounds are different than the story, but I tried visiting Dr. Najo's room and asking if he wanted more coffee, but he said he didn't need any either. It seems my mother's orthodox method of making coffee isn't universally appreciated. One time I made some for Shannon, but she told me that while it was delicious, it was a little strong.
Shannon.
I mean, Ava is a little weird. That's no good. Even though I left the room to change my mood, that image of Shannon's face filling my head has not faded in the slightest. I keep seeing those fun days with her more and more vividly, and it's saddening that I never even got a chance to see her dead face. No, you don't want to see that. You really don't. Actually, I think I was told whenever my grandmother was in her like final month or so, my mom was like saying, "No, you probably shouldn't see her because like she doesn't have much time left. You don't want that lasting image of her." But it's like, no, I remember how she looked whenever I was a kid and everything like that, and in a way, she always looked the same, right? Even throughout like my almost 20 years that I got to grow up knowing her. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of get the argument though. Like, you don't want to see a person that is like, deathly ill. It could leave too much of an impression, especially somebody that's, just straight up been murdered. You probably don't want to see that either because it might taint the memories. According to our parents, she was apparently killed with something like a gun or a spear. I'm sure they were just trying to console me, but they had said her dead face had been very beautiful and peaceful. I wonder if she had the engagement ring I gave her last night on her finger. If she accepted my engagement, she should have it on the ring finger of her left hand. Let's go see. Last night we were both on the edge of losing it and not calm at all. Shannon accepted my engagement pretty courageously, but she might have regretted that as a rash action once she cooled her head. She might have taken the ring off. I wonder if she has the ring now. I want to be sure of at least that much. I want to know how she felt at the very end. But even if I do confirm that, it doesn't mean she'll come back. I wonder what will happen to her body. After the autopsy, it will probably be immediately cremated. Then I'll never be able to see her face, even her dead face, for all eternity. Buddy, you do not want to see that shit right now. Yeah, there's definitely a difference between somebody that's like on their way out and somebody that's already gone. You probably don't want to see that all too much. I know that like at funerals, they'll kind of like put some makeup on the dead body and everything like that, dress them up all pretty, but that's a little different, that's a little bit more of a ceremonial thing. I don't want her body to be burned. If she's burned and turned to ash, never again will it be possible for her to revive. God damn it, man, you are going crazy. They say cremation is frowned upon in Western tradition, because on the day of resurrection, there would be no body to revive. Because of that, it seems that great criminals in Western history were often cremated after execution as a punishment, and their ashes were sometimes scattered in rivers and such. In other words, to Western people, death is nothing more than a sleep until the resurrection. It is essential that the corpse is left after death. But again, like I said, like, eventually your body does go away. Like, even if you're put underground in the nice fancy coffin, eventually it's just going to be your skeleton. And, after your skeleton, it's just going to be nothing. You will completely, disappear. Now I understand. I understand why grandfather idolized the Western occult. That was his only reason from the very beginning. Just to revive the person dear to him, grandfather spent the rest of his remaining life researching the Western occult. He loved everything Western, honestly. I think it was a little bit more than that. if anything. The situation surrounding us now is abnormal. Grandfather did revive his beloved Beatrice, and that Beatrice has carried out a terrible serial murder, with linked closed rooms that force us to conclude that magic was used. The Golden Witch Beatrice, the incarnation of the miracle of the Western occult, and also the culprit who killed Shannon. She's an entity I should hate, and yet for some reason I want to cling to her. I wonder if Shannon could be revived with the magic of miracles, which Grandfather bet his life on. According to the legend of the Ushiromiya family, Grandfather met with her long ago and was given a vast quantity of gold. Then, if I also met with her, instead of gold, would she give me Shannon's life? As collateral, I don't care what sort of devil's contract she imposed. I wouldn't mind sacrificing all my remaining life. Now that's love right there. Or craziness. Just one of them, Not obsession, though. I'm not saying that he's on Kinzo's level whatsoever. George probably couldn't believe or realize that his voiceless wish was heard by the witch herself who stood right behind him. Oh, hello. Beatrice had been listening to that entire discussion between the children just now in the cousin's room. Battler had told her that she didn't know the value of a human's life, and wanting to understand that in her own way, she had stealthily visited, listening in on their discussion. Oh, you want to know what would make things so fucking interesting? Bringing somebody back to life, because we all know she can do it. God damn, let me get a drink. Beato looked at the palms of both of her hands. She had handed over most of her once-searching magical power when the new witch succeeded the name of the Endless Witch. Of course, her current power still made her worthy of being called a witch, but it could not begin to compare to her previous strength. Yeah, do it. I want to see it happen, honestly. Let's get down to it. Let's make this story super unique compared to the previous two. Inside her head, she thought about several magical steps that she could take to revive the dead. Even magic that should have been easy in the past would be difficult with her current power. She thought of something, then clicked her tongue, then did so again, over and over. In the end, she finally thought of a single spell. But that was a spell that she couldn't use by herself. It was a spell that witches with weak power used, one that relied on the aid of others. In the past, Beato looked down upon that type of magic. Therefore, she frantically tried to search for any conceivable alternative. But in the end, she couldn't think of one and slumped over in self-derision. Then, careful not to surprise him, she softly called out, softly to George's heart. Oh man, things are gonna get fucking nutty, aren't they?
Ushiromiya George, わらわの声が聞こえるか?
聞こえるとも。あなたは誰だい？本当に魔女のベアトリーチェ？
I mean, if you're having an inner discussion with somebody, it's probably the fucking witch.
それとも僕の悲しみが生んだ幻想なのか？
Or maybe you are crazy, I don't know.
もしも前者だったなら、僕の願いを聞いてほしい。そして後者なら、僕をそっとしておいてほしい。
Their conversation in a mental world was a lot like having one in a dream. When you dream, haven't you ever had the experience of casually accepting something that would have been absurd in the real world? The conversation in this world was like that. So even though a witch appeared and started talking to George, he was not surprised.
わらわが黄金の魔女ベアトリーチェである。本来わらわとそなたはこうして会話を交わすことなどできぬ。しかしそなたがわらわのことを強く意識し会話を望むからこうして互いのチャンネルを合わせることができる。
Oh, is that how that works now?
シャノンを殺したのがあなたなのか？あなたを名乗る何者かの仕業なのか？ただあなたが本当の魔女として存在しているならば、どんな対価にも応じる。 僕の命を望むなら、今どうかシャノンを生き返らせてほしい。それが無理ならせめて、わずかの間、話をさせてくれるだけでもいい。お願いだ。
対価はいらぬ。その願い。
本当にシャノンを。
うん。だが、反言の魔法を扱うには、今のわらわには魔力が足りん。だから、そなたの手を借りねばならぬ。
僕に
I
でき
really
るこ
wonder
とな
what
ら
that
どんなこ
has
とで
to
も。
entail here.
それが僕の心臓を今
I
すぐ
wonder
この
if
場で
it's
取り出
like
すことであったとしても、僕は躊躇しない。
in a similar vein to how Shannon had to help Beatrice out back in episode 2.
そんなものいらぬというの。わらわは魔法を唱え、さすれば冥府の扉に隙間ができよう。だが、今のわらわには、その隙間よりシャノンの魂を連れ出せるほどの力はない。しかし、シャノンのことを強く思うそなたなら、その思いを魔力に変えて、彼女の魂を必ずや連れ戻せるだろう。どうだ、わらわを手伝うか。
手伝うとも。シャノンの命が蘇るなら、僕は何を失うことも恐れない。
George's fists shook in silence. This is so interesting because literally Beatrice had targeted Shannon in the very beginning. She was a sacrifice. So if we go in this direction, what is awaiting us in episode 4? Like, fuck the other episodes right now. I'm kind of curious what's going to happen in the next episode if Beatrice is going to, like, not necessarily switch sides, but, you know, her whole demeanor, her whole outlook on human lives is just straight up changing. Then he slowly came to his senses. He had been absent-mindedly standing near the window in the hall that whole time, his mug still in hand. And the witch from his dream was still there.
そんな、夢じゃない。
You should scream.
静かにせよ。今のわらわはとても脆い。この上さらに他の人間まで現れたら、姿を保ちきれぬ。そなたの願いは叶えるから、今は沈黙せよ。よいか。
George covered his mouth with both hands, nodding enthusiastically several times. In that instant, he almost dropped the mug he was holding. George frantically juggled it around and caught it. This guy. He was afraid that if it fell to the floor and made a loud sound, well, the witch's form might disappear like a bubble popping. He softly set the mug on the floor and stared at the witch in front of him again. Her form did not disappear. It wasn't a dream.
さあ、シャノンが眠る客室へ行くぞ。そなたの思いの力にて、彼女の魂を連れ戻すんだ。
行くってどうやって？下には母さんたちがいる。表へ出るのを許してくれるわけがない。それにあなたはさっき、他の人間が現れたら姿を保てないと言わなかったかい？
そういえばそうだったな。下にはクラウスたちがおったか。それでは確かに下へ降りられぬな。
Well, time to head outside the window.
ならば、1階へ降りずに屋敷へ行けばいいではないか。簡単な話よ。
Yeah, the window is right there. We could use the chair. Beato laughed as though she had thought of a pleasant prank. And with her golden pipe, she lightly tapped a window with its shutter closed. When she did, 3 gold butterflies appeared from the pipe and opened the lock on the window as though melting it. George, you're about to see some absolute nutty shit, man. That's all I gotta say. Then the window opened without a sound. The shutter beyond it was exactly the same. The clasp unset itself, also without making a sound, and quietly opened. God damn it, the fucking door opening sound. The window opened, exposing the wind and rain outside the mansion. Perhaps because of the direction or something related to the construction of the building, the wind did not blow inside. Because of that, for a while, George felt as though this entrance that opened to the outside was a dream or an illusion, and he couldn't accept it as real.
さあ行くぞ。ついてまいる。
What the fuck? Beato gently floated upwards. It was a natural action, like that of a diver enjoying an underwater stroll. It made it easy to believe that if you acted like she did, you too might be able to float in the sky just as though you were swimming through the water. No, George did believe that. So without thinking, just as she had done, he also gently, as though swimming in the water, lifted his feet. Yeah, bro, shut up.
やるではないか。わらわが説明するよりも早く空を舞うことを覚えたか。
Yeah, his mind is set on one thing and one thing only, and he is chasing after it no matter what. George was shocked to find himself floating in midair like he was swimming. Of course, Beato was also shocked that George, who shouldn't have been able to use magic, had figured out how to do that just by instinct. God damn it, that little ease in that it does.
理屈を考えてはならぬ。それが自然なことであると受け入れよ。ニュートンとかアインシュタインとか人間たちの競技を思い出してはならぬぞ。特に高き空を飛んでいる時は墜落する未熟な魔女も時に
あるがままを受け入れる。
Careful, that's actually a very scary thing to do.
あるがままを受け入れる。
George repeated those words over and over. He must not deny magic no matter what. Or it's all over and we're going straight to the ground. Denying that would be like throwing away what might be his first and last chance to revive Shannon. However, compared to Beato, he was elegantly drifting like smoke. George's movements clearly resembled someone underwater. Therefore, if he didn't act like he was kicking his feet in water every once in a while, he'd be caught by the force of gravity bit by bit.
わらわが初めて空を舞った時よりは上出来であると褒めておくぞ。ついてまいる。
When Beato beckoned to George, she gently flew into the stormy sky. It was like a scene from a fairy tale. The scene unfolding before George's eyes felt entirely like an extension of his dream.
空を飛べるのはすごいけど、すごい風と雨だ。
なんだ、雨と風に苛まれるのか。それを防ぐ魔法を教えてもよいが、今のそなたには早いし。
ええ、僕が必要としている魔法は。
No, let's keep our focus on one thing at a time here. George wore a strong-willed gaze, refusing to let the wind and rain get to him. Well, off to the mansion we go.
もう少し頑張れよ。今落ちれば。But
Sorry, I was still getting a drink. God damn. It's very important to stay hydrated. This weather is no joke. It's not even summertime. It is just so hot. The undulating rose garden was spread beneath the witch and George's gazes. Excuse me, this illusion-like scene no longer surprised George. Only the gradually approaching mansion was reflected in his eyes. Thing is, there's gonna be another witch in there somewhere.
待ってて。
If she's not already, like, expecting these two.
蘇らせてみせる。
It could be pretty crazy, actually. Ava Beatrice gonna be just waiting for George to come here. And there she is. There she fucking is. God damn. No, she's gonna kill him. He's gonna be another sacrifice. My predictions were all wrong. The predictions that she also had, or not even predictions, but the targets that she initially had, they are not lining up as much as I thought they were going to. At that time, the cruel new witch could be seen staring at the guest house from a different location.
あと残すは第7、第8の番だけね。あと2人で先代のババアの義理はおしまいだわ。クラウスと夏日を殺す。
Oh, never mind. All right, we're still going in the direction I predicted,
夫婦仲良く。
and the direction that she declared. Oh, hello.
にひ標的はどうかに。ゲストハウス1階ロビーにて標的2名と後ろ宮エヴァを捕捉。反魔法力測定。410データリンク。410データ受領。反魔法力は極めて小。エヴァさえ席を外せばまな板の上のマグロにアワビです。
Damn, no fucking around. They're just gonna straight up slaughter him.
いかがしますか、大ベアトリーチェ卿。ご命令をいただければすぐにも狙撃いたします。どうかご命令を。ほんとにあんたたちは便利な家具ね。死体をほじるしか能のない中古家具どもとは大違いだわねえ。
Damn.
シエスタ姉妹、
I don't necessarily feel like bad for
見せ
them,
てちょうだい。
but it does kind of suck. They're kind of just, you know, being thrown to the side while the furry looking ones actually take the stage.
死体はまた運び出してね。たっぷり遊んであげるんだから。文句はなしよ、ロノベ。
はい、かしこまりました。
At that moment, the witch noticed something. It was as though some presence had disappeared. Was it her imagination? No, no. You're all good.
何か気配を感じなかった？誰か感じた人いる？申し訳ありません。私は何も気づきませんでした。
Damn, the fact that she isn't, and that she isn't, they both don't see anything.
ルシファーちゃんは何か気配感じた？
Oh, that's fucked up. For just an instant, Lucifer glanced at Renove, asking whether she should answer honestly or not. Renove gave a small nod in response.
いいえ、申し訳ございません。ベアトリーチェ様、私たちは何も。中古家具ゆえ、愚鈍なことをお許しください。
Jesus, man, come on. Not Renove. Like, give Renove some fucking credit here.
そう、大悪魔のあなたがそう言うなら、きっと私の気のせいなんでしょうね。
The witch persistently stared in the direction the presence had disappeared to. The mansion. That was where the rose garden lay, and beyond that she could see the mansion's dark silhouette created by lightning is probably what that should have read like, but it took quite some time before she pushed her unsatisfied feelings aside and once again faced the guest house. This is going to be interesting. There's a huge potential of bringing back a sacrifice. We're getting really close to this clock. We're almost done. We are almost done with this episode, I feel. We're getting there at least. The guest house lobby was wrapped in silence. The strings of tension binding Kraus, Natsuhi, and Ava had already loosened, and they were completely worn out, with their minds beginning to waver. Every once in a while, they would stand up and walk around pointlessly, as though fighting their drowsiness.
大丈夫ですか、エヴァさん。やはり無理をせず休んでいてください。大丈夫だって言ってるわ。もう大人は私たち3人しかいないのよ。休んでる暇なんかないわ。石にかじりついてでもここを死守するわよ。
She spoke bravely, but she couldn't hide her rough breathing. It seemed the fever, which had been calmed with medicine for a short time, had returned. It was very obvious that Ava's health was not good.
無理はするな。せめて目を閉じていたまえ。もし起こさねばならぬ時は必ず起こしてやるから。
だから平気だって言ってるわ。放っておいて。
Honestly, a little bit of respect here to Kraus and Natsuhi for actually being, like, not annoying. It seemed that she was already unwilling to budge. Kraus and Natsuhi realized that even if they talked to her anymore when she was like this, it wouldn't reach her ears. So without saying anything more, they decided to let her be. To Ava right now, even having an argument like that would be burdensome. It would probably be better for her body if she just sat there with her mouth closed. In truth, Ava was just a step away from being beaten down by drowsiness. Perhaps she shot back at them with a temper because she was trying to rouse herself and throw off her sleepiness. The clock would be pointing to 6 o'clock in the afternoon very soon. She'd had several snacks to distract herself from her drowsiness, so she didn't feel hungry. But now her lack of sleep made it feel like it was 6 o'clock in the morning, not the afternoon. Even supposing that the boat came at precisely 9 a.m. tomorrow, well, they still had more than 12 full hours to go. It was an overwhelmingly long stretch of time, plus no one has made it past midnight. Long. painful, hot. Even the sound of the clock torments my body now. In times like this, when that person puts his hand on my forehead, well, the fever fades at once, but that person no longer exists. As Ava's mind grew foggy, she was once again gripped by a deep sadness. She had already cried herself dry. Even so, the sadness of losing her beloved husband had not been exhausted.
私は間違っていたんだわ。
どうして？
The new witch and Ava were fundamentally the same being. If Ava talked to her, she would always respond.
私は後宮家の当主の座さえ得られれば、それで満足のはずだった。
But you were wrong.
それが、あの黄金の山を見た途端に欲が増えたの。あの黄金の山を独り占めしたい気持ちに駆られた。
それは恥じることでも何でもないわ。だって後宮家の当主として当然の権利じゃない。他の誰にも黄金のひとかけらだって譲るものかってのよ。
私がその誘惑にとらわれたから、あなたが生まれてしまったんだわ。あなたは私の少女時代の心であると同時に、自分勝手でしかない私のよこしまな心でもあった。
Hey, at least you're actually realizing it.
そのあな
That's
た
good.
が
That's really
あ
good.
の黄金の山によって芽生えた私の愚かな欲望のせいで、私の胸という卵の殻を破り、この世に生まれ出てしまった。あなたを産んだのは私の責任。
なら私が殺したローザとマリアも、そしてルドルフとキリエと秀吉もあなたの責任ってことになるわ。
Well, not necessarily.
どうしてうちの人まで殺したのよ。どうして。
She's gonna answer something like, oh, he got in the way. He didn't have to die. I didn't want to kill him.
秀吉を殺す気はなかったわ。だってうるさくてしつこかったんだもの。その意味では私たちの、いえ、あなたの責任ね。あんなのを旦那に選んだあなたの責任だわ。
Aw, come on. Hideyoshi's actually a pretty cool guy.
あなたみたいな子供にあの人の良さはわからないわよ。
何よ、私たちは魔法で夢を叶えたのよ。碑文の謎を解いたわ。そして黄金を見つけ、当主の指輪を手にしたわ。すべての夢を叶えきったわ。それがなんで不満なの？
それだけが全ての夢なんかじゃないわ。あの人と素敵な人生を歩んで、ジョージに素晴らしい人生を託す。
You know, there it is. There it is. There's more to it. There's
妻
love.
として、母として。
There's more to life than, you know, just having a whole bunch of money and living it
私
good.
にはまだ叶えなければならない夢がたくさんあるのよ。
There is love.
それなのに。
それはあなたが大人になってから勝手に増やした夢だわ。私たちの夢じゃない。
だからあなたは子供なのよ。自分さえ良ければいいの。そうよ。すべて私が悪いのよ。あの時ローザの言うことにどうして私は反抗したの？どうして兄弟みんなに黄金を見つけたと発表できなかったの？すべて私が醜いから。黄金を独り占めしたくて芽生えさせたよこしまな心があなたを孵化させてしまった。
ひどい嫌われようだわ。私たちは二人で後宮エヴァなのに。
いいえ、もう違うわ。
Yeah, she even said it
そ
herself.
してそれは
Yeah.
あなたが言ったのよ。私は後宮エヴァ、そしてあなたは黄金の魔女ベアトリーチェよ。だからもう消えて。魔女なんておとぎ話の中にしか存在できない妄想よ、幻想よ。あなたなんか消えてしまえ。二度と私の前に現れないで。
ああ、そう。わかったわ。あなたの前から消えてあげるわ。そして私はもう後宮エヴァじゃない。これからは黄金の魔女。
Yeah, you go and do that. You go and do
もう
your
好き
thing
勝
as
手に遊んで
Beatrice.
やるんだから。あんたなんて知らないわ。ヘスでもかんで勝手に死んじゃえば。
See ya. Honestly, you know, less of her is probably for the best here. After having a very childlike tantrum, the witch who had once been another Ava vanished. Only Ava was left behind in the darkness, and she questioned herself.
私なの。私が彼らを殺したの。あの人を殺してしまったのも私が殺してしまったの。
No, you're good. She could no longer answer that question herself. Now, Ava's not at fault here, as far as I can tell. From every perspective we've received... Oh, okay, Jesus Christ. From every perspective that we've received here, with Hideyoshi and the other family members, she's been deathly sick. She hasn't been outside. She hasn't really been in contact with any of the family members. But even that could be a little suspicious, can't it? It seemed that half asleep, she had gotten some saliva caught in her windpipe just as she was dozing off. Ava suddenly started coughing.
大丈夫か、エヴァ、夏日、水を頼む。
はい。大丈夫だってば。
Yeah, totally. Very much so.
ちょっとむせちゃっただけなんだから。
Ava pushed away Natsuhi's hand as she tried to rub her back and unsteadily rose to her feet.
顔を洗ってくるわ。ごめんなさいね。寝ちゃってたわ。戻ってきたらまたコーヒーを入れるわね。特に濃い。明日の朝まで眠気が来なくなるようなやつを。
頼む。ゴーダの入れるコーヒーよりお前が入れるコーヒーの方が私の好みに合うからな。
Damn, we got a few fucking weirdos here in this
お世辞
family.
でも嬉しいわ。すぐ戻るわ。
Ava exited the lobby, heading for the bathroom. Kraus and Natsuhi watched over her frail back.
あなたもあれだけ犬猿の中だったエヴァさんに気を使うこともあるのですね。
At the end of the day, I think that's just how all family may be. I'm sure there's like some specific circumstances where this is not the case, but, you know, despite, you know, those being at odds with one another, despite anything really, other than what I just brought up, some special circumstances, you will all come back together and work together as family.
本来兄とはこういうものではないのかね。
ええ、それで正しいと思います。
エヴァに限らん。
Oh, by the way, these two are now alone.
ルドルフにもローザにも私がした兄らしいことといえばそれを王兵に語り彼らをいじめただけだ。父のようになりたくて私なりに必死だった。だがいつもそれは及ばずそのはけ口を彼らに向けてしまった。しかしそれは言い訳にならん。エヴァにもまだ傷が癒えぬほどに深い心の傷を負わせてしまっただろう。悔いているが今さらそれを詫びたところでその傷が癒えるわけもない。
あなたがその気持ちを今だけでなく持ち続けることでその気持ちはきっと他の兄弟たちにも伝わりますよ。
今となっては他の兄弟もエヴァを残すのみだがね。
もしあなたとあなたのご兄弟が生まれた家が
I don't know.
もっともっと普通な
I mean-
楽しい兄弟の関係であったでしょうに。
I do strongly believe that your circumstances, your surroundings, and all that really do shape who you are as a person.
それを言ってはならん。
But there is some fucked shit with these people's personalities.
私を
And who
憎み続け
knows
た
how, you know, deep-rooted all of those are.
そしてその資格がある。私はそれを甘んじて受け止めるつもりだ。
あなた
Yep, these two are dead.
すまん。もちろん許さなくていい。
These two are for sure dead now. Yeah, there you go. There you
何
go.
を今さら悪いと思ったなら今すぐへそでも噛んで死んじゃえば。やっちゃえシエスタ姉妹。
Oh, here we go with all the wacky shit.
45射撃許可治療射撃曲線再確認飛行誤差修正410ケータリンク。 410データ受領射撃許可確認にひひひひ射撃
I don't know if you guys knew this, but nobody actually laughs like that. Together, the sisters released the magical bowstring they had readied. A beautiful tail trailed behind the gold arrow, and it drew a lovely curve as it flew. It was just like a gold snake. Yeah, we've heard that before. They should come up with a different, metaphor. It skillfully avoided a grove of trees and flew towards the front of the guest house. Then it flew into the keyhole of the door and snuck into the guest house without any problem at all. The gold snake raced down the hall smoothly, yet as fast as an arrow. Right before it was the door to the lobby, excuse me. When it flew into the keyhole, Kraus and Natsuhi were already... For an instant, Kraus thought he saw a gold-colored sparkle in the keyhole on the door. However, at the same time, he strained his eyes to see what it was. That sparkle bent like a whip and attacked, wrapping itself around Kraus's neck. Well, Kraus was the first to go. Just looking at it, the gold snake seemed very supple. However, it was as though a wire had tightened around Kraus's neck. And while that snake choked Kraus, it extended even more and also tightened around Natsuhi's neck. Without even a chance to scream, their eyes bulged as they went into convulsions and then collapsed. Those must have been the quickest Twilight deaths here. But I could also be wrong on that one too. God damn, her way of speaking is just ridiculous. The gold snake began to drag Kraus and Natsuhi's bodies back. They slipped through the door to the corridor, dragging the bodies gradually increasing in speed. I guess that means Nanjo got to survive this one all the way to the end, and rapidly pulled them outside the guest house. However, that really does remain to be truly seen, because we might have somebody, coming back. And I don't really know how that's going to throw a wrench into everything. I'm sure it will throw a wrench into everything, but in what way I have zero idea. So the lobby was silent as though nothing had happened. As though Kraus and Natsuhi had not been there since the beginning. Only the sound of the wind and the rain remained, as if they were playing dumb and pretending to be the only ones there. It's gonna suck for Ava when she comes back out here, and there she is. There she is. Ava returned from the bathroom, but no one was in the lobby. Even though they had supposedly been in that sofa until the moment she had choked and gone to the bathroom, they were gone, as if they'd been an illusion from the very beginning. Ava put her hand on the sofa as though acting out a scene from a detective novel. Honestly, the realistic, perspective here could just be that somebody came in and somehow got rid of the two of them. No blood splatter or anything, but got them out of here. Maybe not necessarily killed them in here, but got them both out. She felt a warmth that meant that they'd been sitting there until a short while ago. Maybe they went to do the rounds or something? For the time being, Ava sat down and waited for their return. Oh, you dumb bitch. Honestly, no, there's no way she could know. There's no way. There's no way she'd be like, oh, well, they're probably dead. Like, that's just a silly, conclusion to jump to, I feel. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Beato and George could be seen in the parlor of the mansion. George was kneeling near Shannon's body as though praying. His face was serious, and there was even sweat on his forehead. However, Beato was the same. Now that she had handed her name over, most of her previous power had been lost. Of course, she still had more than enough power to be called a witch, but compared to the past, it was a very faint thing.
シャノンの失われた魂。
Oh man, things are about to get freaky. George kept praying earnestly and silently. He kept frantically yelling inside his heart, trying to call back the soul of the person he loved. He strongly envisioned his soul leaving his body and searching for her as she wandered through the land of the dead. Beato turned that strong force into magical power that supplemented her own magic. This was magic that, in the past, she could have performed easily without anyone's help. But now, if she didn't rely on someone's assistance, she wouldn't be able to finish the chant, much less succeed.
数百年近くも魔法と反言とはこんなにも辛い魔法であったか。
Beato was wearing an even more strained expression than George. It had slipped her mind, but originally the magic to revive a life was the ultimate hidden art. The abnormal thing was her previous magical power, which could be used over and over with a snap of her fingers. So the heavy burden on her body and mind was, fundamentally speaking, extremely natural.
しかし、こやつめの力、魔法を知らぬというのにかなりのもの。なるほど。
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is the Ushiromiya family at work right here. The strong energy pouring from George was large enough to act as magical power. At first, Beato thought it must be the blood of Kinzo the sorcerer. However, that probably wasn't it. She had a feeling that Battler had already told her what it was. It had been born from the power of George's sadness at the death of the person he loved, and from the way he had tried his hardest throughout his life, from the warm time spent together with Shannon to the size of the dream they swore to protect in the future. Is it really possible for humans to take life so seriously, even though they only have a single one? It was only natural. To her, a life didn't mean anything more than the difference between the top and bottom of an Otello piece, If the black represented death, then she thought all you had to do was flip it over again and make it white. However, it was just like that broken vase. To humans in a world without magic, where they cannot return things to their original form, it is very, very natural for them to bet their life and soul.
生死すら自在にする無限の魔女。死の山さえ越えられぬ有限の人間に。
This time, the witch acknowledged it. He was able to hold a magical power that could never reside in witches who didn't understand the value of life. Why does this thing called the Endless Magic exist? Even though I called myself the Endless Witch, did I forget what the Endless Magic means for 1,000 years? She looked at George's expression again. His surging earnestness was like a lightning bolt. Right now, even if George's body had been burned or smashed by a waterfall, he would probably continue to pray for his beloved without minding it, without noticing it. It's probably the same type of look that Hideyoshi had whenever he died to Eva Beatrice. Like, he looked so serious, right? That was the description that we were given in the previous video, that he eyed Beatrice down, Eva Beatrice. He eyed her down, straight to the end. That seriousness, that soul. And here we are, George doing the same. For the first time, she showed respect for that power. So in that instant, all magical resistance was lost, and the enormous power of George's feelings turned into magical energy in its complete form. Whoa. The vase was very beautiful, rich with history and value. Even as young as I was, it still forced me to take a deep breath when I witnessed its beauty. But that just made me want to touch it. But the vase easily fell and smashed into pieces, like a bubble that had popped. It felt as though the time it possessed a form had been just an illusion. Lives are just that fragile, just that easily lost. I realized that my foolish curiosity had led to something that could not be undone. No matter how much I regretted it, no matter how much I apologized, the smashed vase would not return back to its original form. A lost life will not return to normal no matter what happens. I was frightened that even though my actions had been thoughtless and careless, they had stolen away a life that could never be revived again. Then I pitied that lost life and cried. I was frightened of myself, the one responsible for its loss, and cried even more. I'm sure grandfather will also cry at the loss of his precious vase. I'm sure that all the people who love grandfather and see him like that will cry. With the loss of a single life, the whole world can be filled with so much sadness. I cried even more at how terrible that was. Oh shit, Beatrice appeared and spoke.
ならばお嬢様、この壺を魔法で蘇らせましょう。それで皆が幸せになれるなら、壺も魔法も精霊たちも喜んでそのために力を貸し。さあさあ、お嬢様、目を閉じて、私と一緒にお歌を歌いましょう。
This has been such a long fucking episode.
さあさあ、目を閉じてごらんなさい。そして思い出してごらんなさい。
The reason why I said that is because we're going right back to the very beginning of this episode, and it feels like such a long time ago.
美しい姿、どうか私にあの姿をもう一度見せておくれ。
Come on, George, do some wacky shit here. Show what a human can do. He's gonna bring back a homunculus, I'm sure. Those words of power knocked forcefully on the door to the land of the dead. The magic of her old self had performed that same forceful knock. However, doing it that way was horribly violent, and earned the displeasure of the peacefully sleeping dead. But this time was different. It was very forceful, and yet gentle and loving. Whoa. The dead near the door opened their eyes, and called out to the others that there was a voice calling for someone to come back. This is some wicked imagery. This is some like realm of darkness shit. The sadness of that voice calling from the outside touched the hearts of the dead, and trying to respond as quickly as possible, they searched for Shannon's lost soul. And then, they found it. They found the casket in which Shannon was peacefully sleeping. It truly was Shannon's soul, sleeping in the land of the dead. Inside the casket that was covered with rose flowers, frozen with frost, she was sleeping in peace. The dead silently lifted that casket up. While at a glance it looked like a funeral march, it had the complete opposite meaning. It was solemn but filled with joy. The long-forgotten dead were made to remember that they were loved after their deaths, and they were all given a warm sense of peace. Then, as though guided by a warm light from the heavens, Shannon's body floated up out of the casket. The dead watched her go. They squinted at that warm light, offering their respect to this unknown member of the living who had not lost his love for a person even after their death. That's some real love. That's that real shit. But also, it's like bringing somebody back from the dead, like disturbing the peace. Like, cause you hear the term rest in peace, like their soul now rests. But like, now you're dragging them back. You're throwing them back into that body. You're throwing them back into the real world, whether they want that or not. Shannon's body was enveloped in the light from the heavens and began to disappear. In the jet black darkness of the land of the dead, the faint flickering of gold butterflies could be seen. It reminded them of the gentle stars in the night sky, which they had long forgotten. Is she coming back? And how the fuck are we supposed to connect this to a realistic story? George remembered being told that he must not say anything, and he hurriedly covered his mouth. However, it felt like his heart was trying to jump into his throat, because he had seen Shannon's eyelids shake slightly. I mean, that would make anybody jump. That would make anybody have like a huge reaction if somebody that was clearly dead came back. The impossible made possible will surprise you. Then those eyelids slowly opened. Shannon's eyes were there, but they were still wrapped in the fog of the land of the dead. However, the human world's warmth, no, her lover's warmth, which had called back her soul, slowly dissolved that fog, and her eyes gradually regained their sparkle. Then her eyes moved and recognized George.
ジョージさん。
There she is! After her lips shook weakly, Shannon definitely said that. The words were very faint, so much so that they normally wouldn't have reached his ears. However, George clearly heard them. He heard the person he cared for, his fiancée, the one he loved most, and who should have been dead, call his name once again. Man, Umineko is just constantly doing some crazy shit at every turn.
ジョージさん、これは夢なの？
Should be more of a dream for George.
これは夢じゃないよ。だからほら。つねっても冷めないよ。
What? As George said that, he softly pinned Shannon's cheek. It was how George had always responded in the past, when Shannon had been surprised by something and had asked if she was dreaming. Oh, okay, I see. You can't wake up because you're already awake. When Shannon felt the warm touch of George's finger on her cheek, and when George realized that the warmth of the living had already returned to his beloved person's cheek, they both cried. What words should a pair of lovers separated by death celebrate with when they are reunited? The words of the human world are not enough. In short, they had no need of the words of this world. God damn, she's just fucking perfectly fine, too. Wherever her wound was, I'm sure that's gone, right? George simply hugged Shannon, who was sitting up without talking. You know, honestly, I'm thinking about it in, like, the most boring of sense here. Like, her body has been laying here, no blood flow, no heartbeat, no brain activity, no oxygen, no nothing. And also a wound, you know? She was killed. Like, her organs should not be able to function, especially with the blood loss. How was she here? How is she doing okay? You know, like, what the fuck? Shannon's strength was still feeble, and putting her arms around George's back took all she had. So George hugged her tightly to make up for that, to stop each other from going once more to a place the other's hand could not reach. They hugged each other so tightly, and yet so gently. As Shannon's fingers curled around George's back, on her ring finger, the engagement ring George had given her definitely shone. That strong glint certainly wasn't just the sparkle of a diamond. There definitely was a magical power that only the two lovers could possibly feel. It was because that strong light existed that they had been able to find her casket in the land of the dead. Beato understood. That ring, no. The feelings of the pair embodied in that ring were a miracle made real. In that moment, George definitely used magic. Beato had done nothing more than help him along. That magic had a power that could only reside in those who knew of the importance of life, who knew what it meant to try with all one's might. It was the power of a miracle, one that the Endless Witch could not possibly know of, a miracle that only the power of the finite could give rise to. By now, she had no choice but to accept it. She had to accept that true magic, true magical power, exists in the place furthest away from she who called herself a great witch.
ベアトリーチェ様。
But also, can't we argue that, like, maybe the reason why George has a little bit of magical power is because wasn't he manipulated by Beatrice as a part of the deal that Shannon made with her so that George would fall in love with Shannon? Or was that all just an episode 2 thing to try and describe or explain how the two of them got together? I don't know. Anyways, as much as I am just loving this crazy, wacky ass moment here, we gotta call it. we gotta call it here. Wait, has her character thing been updated? Is she back to life? Come on. Show me. Is she back to life or is she still marked as dead? She's still marked as dead. She is still absolutely 100% marked as dead. Probably because we're still on the magical side of things here. We haven't moved back to, like, the perspective of the humans to recognize that she is alive, which is going to be weird if we even get to that point. I don't really know what's going to happen here because this is such a situation that we just really have not seen before. So this is, you know, good old Umineko with the constant surprises. Wow, what a video, guys. What a video. Alrighty, thank you all for tuning in, though. If you all enjoyed this one, which I hope all of you did, this one was pretty good. Make sure you leave a like, subscribe for more, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one for whatever is going to happen to old Shannon here, who has been dragged on back to the cruel reality that is life. Take it easy, guys.